Hey adventurers, 2025 is absolutely stacked with RPG goodness. We've scoured Steam, Metacritic, Reddit, and every list imaginable to bring you the top 25 RPGs you absolutely must play this year, minus the corniness. Expect epic battles, emotional journeys, and maybe a dad joke or two. Let's get rolling. Number 25. First up on our list, Grim Dawn, the game that asks, what if Diablo put on a trench coat and got really into steampunk horror? Released back in 2016 and somehow still going strong in 2025, Grim Dawn is the definition of a slow burn legend. This game is all about deep customization, dual class builds, and loot that practically screams just 5 more minutes. You want to be a lightning-throwing occultist with a pet skeleton army? Go for it. A dual-wielding gunslinger who dabbles in fire magic? Yes, please. Every skill tree feels like a playground for your inner min-maxer. The world itself is a grim, rotting fantasy land filled with cults, cosmic horrors, and angry ghosts who clearly didn't read the Do Not Disturb sign. It's dark, it's dense, and it's unapologetically crunchy. Sure, the UI hasn't aged like a fine wine, and the story's not going to win any BAFTAs, but when you're knee-deep in legendary loot and watching enemies explode in particle-filled glory, none of that matters. Grim Dawn is proof that you don't need shiny graphics or AAA budgets when your gameplay loop is that addictive. A decade later, and it's still the quiet king of ARPGs. Coming in at number 24, Tyranny, the RPG where evil already won, and you're here to make sure it stays that way. Obsidian dropped this one in 2016, and it remains one of the boldest narrative RPGs ever made. Instead of saving the world, you're enforcing the will of Kairos the Overlord, a dictator so powerful, her laws literally break reality. You play as a fate binder, judge, jury, executioner, all rolled into one. It's your job to settle disputes between warring factions, suppress rebellion, and decide whether someone dies, pays a fine, or turns into a literal statue. Yeah, it's that kind of party. Tyranny's strength lies in its writing. Every decision you make changes the world. Whole regions rise or fall based on your tone in a conversation. It's short, about 20 hours, but every one of those hours hits like a moral gut punch. Combat? It's that classic isometric, pause-and-play strategy. Think Baldur's Gate, but with more fireballs and betrayal. You even build custom spells, because why not cast a freezing shockwave laced with fear? It's a masterclass in world building, full of complex politics, gray morality, and one of the most original settings in modern RPGs. Tyranny is the rare game that lets you be the villain, but the kind that's terrifying because you're so rational. Number 23, Jade Empire, BioWare's martial arts RPG that flew under the radar and straight into cult classic status. Released in 2005, Jade Empire is set in a mythic version of ancient China, where philosophy meets fists and the moral compass doesn't point north. It points toward open palm or closed fist. You play a student of martial arts, chosen to face ancient evils, flying assassins, spirit demons, and, naturally, complicated emotional arcs with your party members. Wouldn't be a BioWare game without a dramatic romance option that ends in tears. Combat here is real-time and stance-based. Swap between barehanded techniques, weapons, magic, and even transformations mid-fight. Some of it feels dated today, sure, but once you start chain-flipping enemies into the air with a flaming staff, you're not going to care. The writing holds up surprisingly well, exploring loyalty, sacrifice, and power, but through a cultural lens that's refreshingly different from the usual Western fantasy. It's short, sweet, and smart, and just quirky enough to be unforgettable. Jade Empire never got the sequel it deserved, but it remains a one-of-a-kind gem. If you've got a soft spot for wuxia films, philosophy, and spinning back kicks of justice, this one belongs in your backlog. Number 22 is a game with more soul than half the genre combined, Lost Odyssey. From a mind of Hironobu Sakaguchi, the godfather of Final Fantasy, comes a traditional turn-based RPG with one major twist. Your main character has lived for over 1,000 years and remembers almost none of it. You are Kame, immortal warrior, tragic backstory enthusiast, and a man whose memories resurface as beautiful, emotional short stories called 1,000 Years of Dreams. These aren't cutscenes. They're fully written, narrated pieces of fiction, tender, painful, human. Combat follows the Final Fantasy formula, but adds a little spice with the ring system. Time your button presses just right and get bonus damage or effects. It's a small tweak, but it keeps you engaged during long fights. The story's classic JRPG melodrama. Save the world, fight the Empire, discover ancient truths. But thanks to phenomenal writing and music by Nobuo Uematsu, it feels like a high-budget opera about memory, grief, and redemption. It's not perfect, the pacing can be slow, and it still clings to some of those mid-2000s quirks. But if you want a JRPG that combines old-school charm with genuine emotional weight, Lost Odyssey is like finding a handwritten letter in a box of forgotten tech. At number 21, we've got Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2, the only RPG where your sword skill matters slightly less than your ability to eat bread and not pass out. This is the sequel to one of the most ambitious historical sims in gaming. Set in 15th century Bohemia, you play as Henry, still a blacksmith's son, still learning which end of the sword goes into your enemy. The sequel refines everything: smarter AI, better combat, and a world that feels even more alive. People go to church, shops open and close. You forget to wash? The townsfolk notice. And if you walk around with stolen meat in your pants, guard will absolutely search you for it. Combat is weighty and realistic. No button mashing here. Every swing, block, and parry feels like you're wearing 40 pounds of armor. If you're coming from Skyrim, prepare to get wrecked. It's also surprisingly funny, whether it's noblemen drunk off their status or the sheer absurdity of managing medieval inventory. But don't let that fool you. The story is long, grounded, and full of layered politics and personal stakes. Deliverance 2 is not for everyone. It's slow, demanding, and brutally authentic. But if you want to roleplay as a genuine medieval peasant clawing his way toward knighthood, this is your holy grail. Number 20, Avowed. Obsidian finally went full Skyrim, but added magic systems, tight faction drama, and that unmistakable Obsidian writing. Set in the Living Lands, an uncharted realm in the Pillars of Eternity universe, you play as an envoy fighting off a supernatural plague called the Dream Scourge. What makes Avowed stand out isn't just the first-person sword and spell combat. It's the balance between narrative depth and moment-to-moment gameplay. 1 second you're rifling through ancient tomes in a plague-ridden crypt, the next you're dual-wielding pistols and lightning bolts in a dusty canyon. You can switch playstyles on the fly, too. Staffs, blades, spells, guns. It's chaos, but it works. The story is rich with tension. Factions each have different ideologies, and the game doesn't force-feed answers. You want a peaceful resolution? You better work for it. You want to set the forest on fire instead? Well, Obsidian will let you, but they'll definitely make you feel something about it. It's not perfect. Some players find the AI a bit special. But Avowed proves Obsidian can build something huge and dynamic while keeping that tight, emotional core they're known for. If you ever wanted a more thoughtful, character-driven Elder Scrolls, this one's for you. Number 19, Claire Obscur, Expedition 33. This one dropped out of nowhere, slapped everyone's expectations, and is now sitting comfortably on many Game of the Year lists. It's French, it's moody, and it's drop-dead gorgeous. Set in a decaying world trapped in a death loop, you're part of the 33rd Expedition, a group of warriors cursed to relive their journey again and again, dying at the stroke of midnight each time. Yeah, it's poetic and brutal. Gameplay blends classic turn-based combat with real-time inputs. You'll be parrying attacks, timing spells, and dodging mid-turn. Imagine if Persona, Final Fantasy, and Dark Souls had a baby and sent it to art school in Paris. But the real star here is the tone. The narrative is heavy, mature, and laced with philosophical undertones. Characters feel like real people, weighed down by trauma and hope. And the music? Haunting. You'll be thinking about this one long after the credits roll. It's stylish, it's strategic, and it hits hard emotionally. For a first-time studio, Obscur isn't just a win. It's a warning shot to the entire genre. Turn-based RPGs are alive and well, and they've got class. Number 18, Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. This is the one for all the brooding fantasy lovers out there. Think Arthurian legends, but if they were dunked in a vat of despair and left to ferment. It's set in a dying world warped by an unnatural force called the Wordness. You, a recently freed prisoner, are dropped into this decaying land with nothing but bad vibes and a rusty sword. Your job? Survive, explore, and try not to get turned into meat confetti by something that used to be a knight. It's an open-world RPG, sure, but the twist is in the tone. Every corner of this world feels like it's on the edge of collapse. NPCs don't just give quests. They beg, plead, or curse you under their breath. It's grim, and it's delicious. Combat is first-person, weighty, and unglamorous. You swing a sword like someone who learned by reading a book once. But the jank has charm, and the progression system lets you get creative with builds as you learn the world's weird rules. If you like your fantasy cursed, your quests existential, and your swords heavy enough to pull your shoulder out, Tainted Grail is a dark little gem. Number 17, Monster Hunter Wilds. This is Capcom at full evolutionary power. Bigger maps, smarter monsters, and for the first time ever, mounts that actually fight with you. Not just a horse to ride in a battle, but a furry, scaly war buddy. The Monster Hunter formula is still intact. You track, stalk, study, and finally destroy gigantic monsters in beautifully chaotic combat. But Wilds dials up the immersion. Ecosystems are more complex. Monsters interact with each other. Weather affects behavior. It's the most dynamic hunt the series has ever delivered. And then there's the gear grind. Still glorious. Still endless. Every kill gives you a chance to craft your dream weapon, only to replace it 5 hours later when you fall in love with a new monster's tail hammer. It's what keeps players hooked for hundreds of hours. Wilds also finally puts more emphasis on story, giving players a reason to care beyond just big lizard go smash. Not that we didn't love that already. If you're a returning hunter, this one's everything you hoped for. And if you're new, welcome to the world's most satisfying grind. Get your potions ready. Number 16, Blueprints. The indie puzzle RPG that came out of left field and took everyone by surprise. It's witty, weird, and absolutely wonderful. You play as a prince trapped in a castle that rearranges itself every night. Each room is a puzzle, each corridor a mystery, and every combat encounter is a grid-based brain teaser. You're not swinging a sword. You're manipulating space, triggering traps, and rearranging reality. Think of it like if Portal, Hades, and The Witness had a baby. Then raise that baby in a haunted Rubik's Cube. But don't let the clever mechanics fool you. There's emotional weight behind the snark. The narrative is packed with charm and melancholy, and the writing is razor sharp. One minute you're laughing at a sarcastic ghost. The next you're reflecting on the nature of legacy and failure. It's relatively short, about 10 to 12 hours, but every minute is memorable. No filler, no fluff, just an incredibly smart, stylish experience that respects your time and your intelligence. If you love solving puzzles, thinking 3 moves ahead, and occasionally getting roasted by the narrator, Blueprints is one of the most unique RPGs of the year. Number 15, Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster. Two of the most beloved JRPGs from the